Winter can be a good time of year to start learning about mushrooms or hone your identification skills. Now that initially might seem a bit counterintuitive because obviously even I would say autumn is the best time of year for mushrooms in terms of how many you get, and in many ways you could argue as well that autumn for that reason is the best time of year to start learning about mushrooms. But what I mean is that because there's so many mushrooms in autumn, that can for some people be a bit overwhelming. Whereas in winter, there's far fewer, but there's still some. So because there are far fewer, and because they tend to stand out a bit more because there's not much else around, and what mushrooms you find in winter tend to be quite distinctive as well, that can all make identification a bit easier. So for those reasons, it can be a very good time of year to start learning about mushroom foraging, and if you've already started, to hone your skills. So without further ado, here are my top 5 winter mushrooms. Starting with the grey oyster mushroom, Pleurotus ostreatus. You'll find these all year round, but I've put it in my winter top 5 because it is more common in winter than any other time of year. Next up we have the velvet shank. Of all the edible mushrooms that you might find in deepest, darkest winter, this is one of the best of them. They also look lovely and bright against the otherwise drab tones of winter. Velvet shank is what I call a winter specialist. You only really find it in winter. You might occasionally find it in late autumn like November and possibly early spring, but certainly the most common months that I find it is December and even more so January and February. Third up in my top 5 we have jelly ear, also known as wood ear. It's easy to identify, it's common, plentiful and can be found all year round, including deepest darkest winter when it arguably even looks at its best. The mushroom is so called perhaps obviously because it looks like an ear. The fourth mushroom of my top 5 winter mushrooms is the scarlet elf cup. A very nice edible mushroom that's easy to identify for beginners, partly because of the time of year it grows, November to April, but also because it's very distinguishable. You'll find it November at the earliest, right through to April, but most commonly I find January, February and March. And finally in my top 5 we have turkey tail, which is not strictly edible in the same way as the other mushrooms I've covered, but it is one of the most powerful medicinal mushrooms in the world, and nice to look at. You'll find turkey tail all year round, but it stands out in winter when everything else fades, and because of its immune boosting properties, winter is a good time to find and use it. So that's my top 5. I do have some bonus shout outs to the bluets, like the wood bluet and the field bluet, which I do still find in December and January, and also things like snowy waxcaps and meadow waxcaps, which can still be knocking around in December. Winter foraging, especially for mushrooms, can be incredibly rewarding, and if nothing else, it's a good excuse to get out the house and get into nature. And these 5 mushrooms are my favourite ones to find in the coldest months. And each one brings something unique to your kitchen or medicinally.